You know, he meant, I mean, he said, he talked about exile. He's the one who gave that example. And, you know, and we've seen people, I mean, he's the one who talked about it, yes. Really, nobody else. He's the one who quoted those statements, exile and what have you. So, I mean, if that's what he's thinking, so be it. But we've seen even countries in Africa, and I've been asking myself, if you're to run it from exile, which country is going to allow that? You saw the issue in the Gambia, where even Yahya Jammeh, before he was given the chance to go to another country, among the few rules that he was told is that you cannot interfere with the country, with the president or the government that has been elected in the Gambia. So I don't think there's any country which can entertain that, so to speak. But coming to the utterances and that which you're talking about, and what my good friend Bonasemaka is talking about, illegitimate. I told you earlier on, it's only NASA who are using that term illegitimate. And the reason they are using it is to just create a whirlwind of emotions. And the reason why I'm calling it is they have refused to move on. You saw their counterparts in Kisi. What did they say? They said, you know what, we are done with these shenanigans. We want to move on. The country has moved. We actually respect and recognize the president. And that's what we are going to serve, because these are people who are geared to serving their community as they were voted in by the people. So they are ready to do that. When you come to the people, the loudmouths who are telling Raila, you have nowhere to go but to be sworn in, I think those are the people who are creating problems for Raila. And that's why the man has been so slow into be swearing in since October. You know, we've been played this, I mean, now we are coming to the end of the month, and I can guarantee you probably it won't happen, because they are trying to push Raila. Raila knows the law. Don't be cheated. He knows the law, and he knows when you're talking about being sworn in as the president of the Republic of Kenya, let me use that word again, sworn in as the president of the Republic of Kenya, not any other thing. If it's the People Assembly, that is okay. The words that you've just used, Ken, you don't have a place for two presidents. That is very true. You don't have a place in this country of two commander-in-chiefs. Never happened in any other country. So what we are saying is that Raila knows the law. And Raila is not going to adamantly and unilaterally just break that law. He knows what many international conventions talk about. He is actually alive to the EU Parliament, what they discussed. He is so alive to that.
We'll be talking about that. But the issue of the Kisi legislators, you might have also quoted them out of context, because I listened to them. That's not what they said.
No, Richard Onyonka said he recognizes there's a president.
And also went ahead and said but he doesn't mind if they decide to swear Raila in, he doesn't mind. And
you see,
he said that.
You see, many people, many people, when you talk about, I've mentioned two things. Swearing in as what? If you're talking about the People's Assembly, he can swear himself even in tomorrow. But when you're talking about the President of the Republic of Kenya, that's gone and dusted. Within our control, it's a done deal.
Okay. I don't know if, Ken, you are comfortable talking about these matters now that you're here for something else. You want to comment, or we finish it and we talk about something else?
I mean, I would just say about this whole swearing in issue would be that, first of all, like the way the Kenyan kind of like system of government has been designed in the new 2010 constitution creates so many opportunities for the opposition to kind of like effect its muscles policy-wise. I feel like the consensus right now from so many parties, including Kenya's strategic partners, is that, you know, like a swearing-in ceremony would not be legitimate and it would not be lawful or constitutional. So for me, would be kind of like, you know, go back for the opposition to go back into itself and kind of see how it can improve the lives of so many who are
Is it lost to you that the opposition has refused adamantly that there was no election in Kenya when you say that? Because to them, they are proceeding from a point of, we never had an election. The only election we had was the one that was thrown out by the court on August 8th, on 1st September. The 26th one that gave the legitimacy to President Uhuru Kenyatta right now, they don't recognize it. So what you're saying, do you also proceed from where they are, that they don't consider 26th of October a valid election or an election at all?
I feel like, you know, relitigating the October 26th.
Not really. You're just saying, when you're saying that there's so many opportunities, is it lost to you that they don't recognize that there was an election on the 26th at all? To them, they're proceeding from the August 8th that was nullified, and the one they insist they won.
But the thing about the kind of power that maybe the opposition is going after right now is that it's kind of like, the events have already gone so far that to kind of effect the changes that they want to see would be near impossible. And that's why the national dialogue issue keeps being brought up, because that's the only way that you can have, like the opposition be brought in a place of equality with the current government.
Okay.
But the crisis of legitimacy, it's like a sword that cuts on both sides. So first of all, you have the legitimacy of the current administration, but you also have the formal legitimacy of the opposition, and that's why the question of a swearing-in ceremony is so important to them.
All right. Yeah. David, and of course Gabriel Muduma here. Let's comment about that. This clarification is very necessary in light of the newspaper reports and of course a lot of reports in the media that there's division, so that solidifies what you've been saying the whole morning.
Yeah, and actually quite a bit of it I was telling you off camera that some of these things I've actually read in the newspapers, and they're completely contrary to what I know from first-hand information on what the principals and other structures of NASA have been discussing and agreeing upon. So you know that what is being discussed, what kind of dialogue are we talking about, the continuation of the people's assemblies, the swearing in, and what we must push for to continue the process of liberating this country. You know that is what is being discussed in this, some of them public, some private meetings. And then you see a headline, either in the newspaper or television, talking about something completely different, about divisions in NASA, about positions in government and so on. I'm glad that we have had this press conference to clarify NASA has absolutely no interest in boardroom
position.
deals.
All right.
So and positions, which is something that has been proposed by Jubilee again and again. And NASA again and again has said, no, we are not interested. Which is something Godek, this American fellow, has kept pushing.
Ambassador.
He's an ambassador, yes. He's a fellow also. Someone called him a puppy, which he has been pushing, not my words, which he has been pushing, and NASA has said, no, we do not agree. It's for the nation, not for a few individuals to get positions.
Okay. All right, Gabriel.
The president has made it very critical, and actually not critical. The president has made it very clear that any dialogue that he will hold, anything to discuss development, we are already talking about the big fours. That is the agenda right now on the table.
They're not going to have any conversation.
Let me tell you, no, zero.
Elections.
I wouldn't even, you know what? You see, somebody said, I remember a friend of mine actually was the one who was telling NASA leaders they need to go and listen to that Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler. Know when to hold, when to fold. That's a very good song. It's a friend of mine who was actually advising them on another actually media briefing. And I think that's what they need to understand. By the way, we may take it as a joke, but from what I've had David Ndei talking about, I mean, this is just, it's not even some, and I believe you're giving these people a lot of airtime. We are past that. How do you legitimize the August 8th election? How do you do that? Something that went to the Supreme Court. We are done and dusted. What does our Constitution say about, where we've left? All right? So how do you legitimize that? Which is out of the Constitution. And then again, they say everything we'll do will be within the Constitution. Same thing. Double speak. All right? So let's move away from these emotions that I hear my good friend talking about. And I'm not talking about issues to do with the judicial reform. That is not the debate that I'm saying we shy away from it. There are houses that need to discuss that. There's Parliament. What have we done last week? All right? And in fact, I think it's the beginning of this week. We were talking about our judicial process. How do we ensure
we decongest the courts?
Exactly.
Yes.
In fact, I saw you did a very good coverage. Your media house did a very good coverage on that issue of the decongestion. That is the topic that Kenyans are talking about. We are talking about taking back our kids to school. We are talking about implementing a new education syllabus. That is what Kenya is talking about at this point. And then you're still telling us to come on. You're giving these people a lot of airtime, Ken Mijungu.
Okay, we balance our airtime right here. We balance our airtime. I don't know if you want to comment about that because we need to conclude the discussion, but I need to take you out of Kenya briefly and look at the countries, other countries around us because they affect our politics. These are our neighbors. Let's start with Burundi, 18. Go to Rwanda, 23. Go to Uganda, Tanzania, 50. I think Tanzania was the highest in East Africa, right? Yes. Tanzania at 52, if I'm not wrong. Uganda was at
37.
37, which is pretty low, right? But we understand what's happening. The Ugandan situation and the Kenyan situation, almost alike. But our democratic space is even bigger than Uganda. But look at the region. I want your analysis of those causes in the region.
I think what we've been seeing in the East African region is a general decline in the democratic space, respect for rights, and also their...
Which shouldn't happen in 2018. Shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't, definitely shouldn't happen. Most of these countries are facing, post-conflict situations, which are, they're trying to resolve. But then the other issue that we've been facing in the region is big man politics. Another thing that has distinguished East Africa from other regions is, the continued reliance on one person to be the source of leadership for a prolonged period of time. So you have a president for life in Uganda. We have a president for life in making in Rwanda and Burundi. We have a very kind of populist on and off message politician in Tanzania. So the scenario now, Kenya, which used to be kind of like the more sensible, source for inspirational leadership in terms of democracy and rights in Eastern Africa, is now, joining that group, which is super, super worrying. It's very worrying. So that's the issue that we are facing right now, that we are kind of just drifting along to a place where we don't know how it looks like, but we know it's not good.
But Kenya still sets the agenda. The other day, so Kizza Besigye talking about the People's Assembly also, in Uganda. The other day, who's proposing that. But your view in terms of ranking in the region?
First of all, just to agree with my colleague here when he says that we have to get really worried that we have in the past set the pace, and I emphasize setting the pace doesn't necessarily mean you are the best, but you are headed in the right direction. But now, unfortunately, we are sliding at a very dangerous speed towards the direction that Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda have gone. And we could actually, go beyond them, surpass them at the rate at which we are going. And this is why we need to be sufficiently angry that this is a space we need to guard. It's not for individual benefit. It's for the benefit of the entire society. When you look at what's happening in Uganda with the changes that they have forced through on the constitution, just so that one man, just one old man, can continue lording it over that country. When you see how it happened in Rwanda, you see what has been happening in Burundi, just so that this one man in Uganda, one man in Rwanda, one man in Burundi, can continue lording it over society. People must get very angry and stop this kind of thing. And stopping it doesn't come easy. Stopping it will never include accepting and moving on. When you accept and move on, you cement that kind of behavior. You give them a motivation and encouragement that it can happen again. This is why in this country we must stop those who are asking us to turn a blind eye, accept goodies as sort of bribes, in my opinion, when you are told that accept positions and move on. We are fighting so that we can safeguard what we have had in terms of free democratic space in this country as a basis for human development, and then better it, make it better.
Okay. Yeah. And Gabriel, on one hand, you agree with Simeha and of course with Ken that politics, the reason why this has to be pegged on the politics of the day is because politics sets the pace for everything in this country. True. And on the other hand, you're saying that let's forget about politics right now and engage in development matters and reforming the judiciary. Let's put aside politics for now.
There's a time for everything, and that's what I keep saying. There's a time for everything. I like to agree with what is it Ken?
Yes.
Actually, who Ken made a very good observation. And what he said, sometimes when you're looking to come in and do that survey like they did, it depends on the period that you come in. If this report was released around, if it was conducted around 2015, would we have seen, the same thing being reported as to where Kenya is today?
Is it biannual, the report?
No, it's annual, but it kind of goes down in Kenya every election.
Exactly. You see, so if it was done in around 2016, when you had a bipartisan approach of how IBC should be run, and you remember it was done in Parliament led by Keraito and Senator Orengo.
Yes.
They sat down and said, this is what we want to see. So I totally agree. It depends on when you do it. Because when we come to an election, every time, our emotions are all over. We are almost rising against one another. But then when it subsides, we go back to our business. And that's not to say that we should not change those periods. We should ensure that we have a mechanism that continues to give us up, where where we do not have the ups and downs as we see. I mean, you had a country like Germany. We were just talking, as they were running a marathon, an international marathon. They were still doing an election, and I believe we are not there yet. I hope we get to that particular point, coming to our neighbors.
Yes, as you comment on the neighbors,
yes.
And based on what you have just talked about, the period of the report,
right.
You'd help us with the kind of ranking that we had. The last time Tanzania had an election was 2 years ago, right? Uganda had an election almost how many years ago? It's 3-4 years ago. And you look at Rwanda is last year. Sorry,
yes,
Burundi was 2 years ago.
Yes.
But this has been done. So if you put to perspective the kind of scores they had during the election and right now, have they improved? Before he comments on the region, have they improved or they've maintained?
I think generally in these countries which are kind of like mentioned as not being free, every election year just means that the rankings go down.
But this has been done this year when there's no election except for Rwanda. In Kenya.
I would have to look at the
you don't have them,
the data.
the fingertips.
We
Okay,
also
Gabriel.
actually don't have
Yes.
But the point I'm trying to make across here is we also have to be alive and very respectable, if you will, to the constitution that govern these countries. When you look at a country like Rwanda, and we talk about a live president, is it captured in their constitution? And who are we to tell them how to run their country? And who, even the people who are conducting this survey? Remember, a constitution is a sovereign document that me and you put into effect by saying this is how we want to be governed. So if they so choose that we want, a light president, or like the way they do in Israel, you can become a prime minister now, after several years you go back for it. I mean, that's the way they have, elected to be governed. So as much as we are talking, we want to bring in our ideas, as much as we want to bring in our thoughts to, to analyze and try to kick off, if you will, a manner of saying we feel we should be not ranked or we should be, up or below. I think we should respect the kind of constitution that they have. You see, a country like Tanzania, I've been told, and there was a book I was reading that even Nigerians, they have come to study Tanzania. Because when you look at Tanzania, it's almost half and half Muslims and Christians. They don't have the issues that Nigeria have. Every time the waging factions between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria erupts, when, it can actually burn that country. But what has Tanzania done for them to be, for them to be
Nigeria? I just want to comment about two things, about the regions and you saying the constitution that governs them.
Yeah.
Let's look at two countries in specific. Let's look at Uganda. We're just through with this debate on age limit,
Yes.
That's not in their constitution. They tried to amend it to increase the opportunity. Look at Rwanda.
Yeah.
Before Paul Kagame reigned again,
Yes.
you see what happened with parliament. So it's not in their constitution, but this leadership try and change it to suit them at their convenience. So it's not about it.
I'm not supporting that. I'm not supporting somebody who will come and say, you know what, I will change this constitution because it favors me. I mean, those are dictatorial tendencies, But what is the majority? What is the feeling
of the majority? President Museveni, so I'm talking to you, President Museveni said back in 2010, if I'm not wrong, 2009 or 10, that so long as his party is willing to have him as the presidential candidate, he will continue running.
And also, I'm just hearing double speak here. That respect their constitutions and so on. And then you bring up a very good challenge.
Yes.
How do some of those provisions come into these constitutions? Through massive coercion, using bribery, intimidation, breaking of the very same constitution, like what has happened in Uganda barely 2-3 months ago.
Yes,
and so
the age limit.
Yes,
debate.
just to ensure that this constitution is changed to favor one man, not even the party, one man. And then we say, okay, let's just respect it because it's their constitution. You know what, Kane and my colleagues, the principles of democracy, the principles of good governance, the principles of human rights are universal. Contexts differ, but the principles are universal, and you will not go wrong with those principles. The practice, I'm not saying that must be uniform across the world, but the respect for the principles of human rights, democracy, and good governance they are uniform the world over. So
Okay.
it's not even a subject of argument that because it's they, so let us respect how they want to live and so on.
Okay, let's leave them alone to govern themselves. All right, gentlemen.
But you see, when you allow that, that's the kind of, and when I talk, he thinks it's double speak. You see, people still, at the end of the day, they have the power to change it. I give you a very good example. The Gambia. If you look at somebody like Yahya Jammeh, he was a very, he thought he was a very strong president. He would have changed anything. In fact, after he went out and accepted the results, he came back in and, he wanted to actually bring a lot of flare-ups in the Gambia. But Adama Barrow, what did Adama Barrow do? He was supported by almost everyone, including the military. Okay, so you cannot tell me that you can coerce everybody.
Because
This happened in Uganda.
Uganda, but the Gambia was a very
overwhelming
case.
majority of Ugandan citizens.
Do you know you have
did not
given me a
support
case
that
in
change.
Uganda and I've given you a
And
case
there was a
in Gambia.
crackdown
Which
in
is not
Uganda.
the same.
Serious crackdown.
Those two things are not the same.
Okay.
We came
The
back to talking about the
The Gambia was not
The
changing
Gambia
any
was totally
constitution.
different.
Totally
The
different.
Gambia, he accepted. Yahya accepted. He was
accepted,
defeated.
no,
After
and
some
then
time, he
came
changed
back,
his mind,
and then came
which
back.
was unrealistic.
That's why I'm bringing in
Yeah.
the people. Even if we go back to Uganda, if the majority of the people really say no,
Gabriel, did
our
you watch
government-
the crackdown in Uganda?
You know,
I
Honestly.
did.
What
I
he-
did.
what he is
I
missing-
did.
what
What I watched is let me tell you what I watched. I watched my good friend Kizza Besigye lose an election, and he was actually going the direction they are going to swear himself in, but he lost an election.
Okay, no, we
But
can't have
that's
an
another
argument at the
topic.
same
No,
level.
it
Yes, we
is.
cannot.
It is.
Okay.
Look, let me tell you something.
Okay.
Let me just tell our viewers something. Yahya Jammeh made an attempt to hang on to power. He was coerced by force of military in West Africa out of office. It was by coercion. It's not that he accepted the people's will. He pretended to accept, and then he decided that I will stick on. It is because of the progressive politics of a number of the neighboring countries. By the way, ECOWAS is very progressive in this. That's where EAC has completely failed. They said, no, we won't accept that. You must respect the people's will. He was coerced.
Okay.
So you cannot compare that to the situation we are discussing, for example, in Uganda.
And ECOWAS is likely successful because they have a vision. They have a specific thing they want to achieve. Look at EAC. They are looking at political environment, economic environment, so many things at once. Gentlemen, we have to conclude this discussion, and I'll give you the final comments. How do you get out of 48? How do you return to 60, 70? Just briefly, 30 seconds. I'll begin with you.
My takeaway would be inclusivity, implementing the Constitution, and letting organizations, journalists, and citizens engage freely in their society under the terms set in the Constitution.
All right. Very brief indeed.
Mine is to reject docility and subservience, to get extremely angry at those who have driven us to this point, which we are doing as NASA, and to chart a path which will involve inclusivity, therefore I take one of his words, which will involve bringing many Kenyans, every Kenyan, as much as practically possible, into this conversation of how do we reform our country for the benefit of everyone, but not a small super elite. So it's a fight. It's not going to come easy. It's a bitter fight, and that's what NASA is involved in.
Well, democracy is dynamic, and I don't think there's any need to be angry at whoever. I think what we need to capture in our minds that we are still a growing democracy. And again, let's not beat ourselves too much. We have a long way to go. What I'll agree is we need to be sitting down oftenly and saying, where are we going wrong? How do we fix it? We have very good institutions, Ken, and that's where I really think we should actually project much of our energy. By the way, there's something I wanted to mention, on NTSA. There's something we are running away from.
Okay, just
even
briefly.
though we looked at NTSA as alcohol thingy, that's how we remember them. NTSA have come up with a very good, they've come up with a very good technology which is incorporated in the new driver's licenses. A very good friend of mine who was actually the CEO within the region, he was actually the best CEO, Fernando Angila. If you look at this young guy, he's the one who started the issue of don't text and drive. So NTSA have very good programs. I wish we could bring and listen to that which they want to do. The fact, they're out of the road, but it's because all of us knew NTSA as the guys who own alcohol. That is not it. They have so many other big programs that I have seen personally that can work great within our roads.
All right. Good point to end. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Gabriel Muduma, thank you for coming. Joseph Simeha, thank you very much. And Kanyali, Thank you, Ken. And we'll invite you more to talk to us about these issues. Thank you. First time, thank you on our set. All right, time now to take a look at some sports. And Sean Kadavelis is in studio. Sean?
Thank you very much, Ken. Let's start off with the Sawyer Awards.